Okay, welcome everybody. We've got more colleagues to join us soon, so we might just wait a minute or so for those to join us. Thank you so much for attending this session. I'm Dr. Rebecca Conway. I'm the Director of Research and Innovation at NCFE. So we've put these 3 sessions together just to give you a flavour of the support that's available from NCFE, from Gatsby, from ETF, from AOC, and from some other organisations as well. For the T-level health programme. So this first session today is focused on assessment. So it's NCFE with contributions from ETF and Gatsby as well. So really delighted to have you with us. I'm going to start recording the session now, just so that colleagues can watch it back on playback. So do be aware that when we do record this, you will your chat messages will be visible on the recording. If you do want to send us a message and you don't want that to be visible on the screen, you can send it using the Q&A function. So you can see at the top of the options bar, there are lots of different functions. So people, Q&A, chat. So just a reminder that we can see your chat, but no one can see your Q&A apart from me. So if you want to ask a question more discreetly, that's absolutely fine, and that's something we can do together. So let me just give you a quick overview of the session today, and I believe we are recording, which is fabulous. Great. So just to get the chat box started as well, if anyone's got any reflections on different formative assessment or summative assessment preparation activities they've done that have been really effective, if you want to pop some ideas in the chat box, that would be great. We can pick those up as we go along. We're going to have short presentations from different colleagues with time after each presentation for questions and then some time at the end. So we'll use the Q&A and the chat box for questions just to keep the quality of the call. So let's get going. Let me show you what we have for you today. So this is just an overview of the session and the time that we've got together. We've just got an hour in for this twilight session today. So as I mentioned, we've got contributors from NCFE, the Education and Training Foundation, and that's ETF, and Gatsby as well. If you use the chat box or Q&A, we'll be able to engage with you. And again, a reminder, if you've just arrived, that we will have a recording of this video and you can see those chat box messages on the recording. So just be aware of that. For colleagues watching this on playback. We're going to share the slides after the session, and also we've got some links and other resources to share with you as well. So just wanted to start the session very quickly with an overview of the different organisations that we've got with you today. So this is NCFE, and I won't go through this whole thing because we're giving you these slides afterwards. NCFE are the awarding organisation who design, develop and support delivery of the technical qualification that's in the T-level. So the T-level is owned by the Institute for Apprenticeships and Technical Education, but NCFE delivers that on their behalf. And here are some of the different types of resource that NCFE provide. Tracey, a colleague from NCFE, will go through those today. ETF, there's an overview here of what ETF do. So they help educators deliver T-levels, focusing on academic and industry standards with these types of resources here. Again, I'm not going to whiz through this in any depth because I know that we'll be sharing the slides and also the video with you afterwards. And finally, we have Gatsby. So Gatsby also provide resources, events, employer engagement, public awareness campaigns as well. So depending on the nature of your institution, whether I know we've got some schools, we've got some sixth forms, I've got FE colleges with us today. So you might know some of these organisations more than others, but we'll all be just showing you what's available today to support you in your delivery. So Tracey, over to you to start. I am going to be moving the slides on, so just let me know when you want to go forwards.
Thank you, Rebecca. Hello, everybody. So to start with, I'm going to really start at the very beginning with the sort of teaching and delivery and just make sure we understand what formative assessment is in health T-levels. We're going to explore the use of banded marking schemes and therefore ultimately how do we then prepare students for summative assessment. So moving on to introducing myself for those that haven't met yet. Next slide, sorry, Rebecca. So in regards to me, I think I've met a lot of you throughout my delivery. So I'm the Health and Science T-Level Provider Development Officer, and my role is really to support all our Health and Science T-Levels, and today our Health T-Levels in the teaching and delivery through one-to-one and CPD and various other resources, which I will touch on later. So let's move on to the next slide, where we're going to make sure that we're understanding what formative assessment is and actually what the purpose of it is. So formative assessment is a really powerful tool in the learning process. And I know moving from sort of vocational quals that we've moved from, where we have done some formative, but we've been very much dependent on summative assessment. It's really ensuring that we have really strong, robust formative assessment in place to support our teaching delivery and support our student outcome. It really helps us and provide continuous feedback, and it makes sure that we are able to identify both those sort of strengths and growth areas, and really help our students understand where they need to excel and where they can improve. So through that continuous feedback, not only does it sort of help in understand their progress, but it's a really important part of that student learning journey. And it really helps identify those gaps very early on that the students need support on, and it really makes that learning personalised. Ultimately, it is a T-level qualification, and it's a technical qualification, and it is very much making sure that our formative assessment aligns with those industry standards. That ensures that our students are going to be able to encounter real world settings and feel prepared for those, whether that's in the classroom, in sim room, in the placement, and then ultimately supporting them to working in the health sector. So our core goal of formative assessment is to build that competence and confidence, and it really helps students master those foundational skills both vocationally and academically, and really build that self-assurance in our students. So what's the benefits of formative assessment? So moving on, as I mentioned earlier, it's providing that real-time feedback to the students. It's that immediate feedback. It's not waiting for summative end-point assessment. It's giving that immediate feedback to identify areas where they need support. It also allows us to adjust our approach quickly. So whether we need to slow down, speed up, support understanding in a specific area, it really helps teachers understand how students are performing in real time, and it can really help us modify our lessons and provide that additional support where needed. And ultimately, it boosts academic achievement, engagement, and motivation, which is really key for your students' success in this technical qualification. And it really helps identify and addressing learning gaps so that students feel supported and motivated, builds their confidence, and encourages them to stay engaged within the material. So how do we make formative assessment engaging? So obviously we've asked in the chat for you to share some of your strategies, so please do share those in the chat with us. So what effective formative or summative assessment strategies have you used in your delivery? But there's many things. You can use past papers or quizzes. These are really good ways to build that strong foundation. From multiple choice questions to short written questions. It really helps us understand where our students are sitting, whether it's an AO1 application, AO1 identifying knowledge or AO2 application of knowledge. Another really important part is this active learning through practical exercises, so mirroring that real world healthcare challenges and simulations and case studies. So for example, using patient prioritization scenarios, which are really good for sort of ethical debates as well, and helps develop those critical thinking and decision-making skills. Those hand-on practice really helps bring the theoretical knowledge to life, so really help prepare students for those healthcare environments. A key is our questioning, isn't it? How we ask our student, how do we probe our students? And these questions need to be probing, and they need to be reflective. They can be industry specific. So how would you handle an unexpected patient condition? Or what steps are essentials in a crisis? And really gets the students to think critically and prepare them for the decision-making demands of healthcare roles. And as we know, care practitioners, they're reflective practitioners, just like us teachers. And it's really important that they start now, the students, with that reflective journal through their continuous learning. Not only will it prepare them for industry and their assessments, but it really helps them understand what they're experiencing, what their challenges were, and what their successes are. So how do we then transition to summative assessment? So this is where banded mark scheme and utilising them within your role is really important, and really helping your students' understanding of the marking criteria. It gives that clear expectation and guiding students towards summative assessment. Introducing the schemes early in the course is crucial, and by explaining the criteria from the beginning, you help students understand the levels they need to achieve and what is expected of them. It's also important to relate these criteria to practical healthcare settings. When students can see how their performance relate to real-world situations, they understand the relevance of the mark scheme. This helps the student apply their learning effectively and then prepares them for the demands of the industry. It needs to be incremental, this complexity, and you really need to scaffold and support your students in this. So you might begin with AO1 focused tasks, so for that foundational knowledge such as definitions or basic explanations. Moving on to that AO2 focused tasks, well, they're becoming more confident, so they really start now applying that relevant knowledge in varied healthcare settings. And that's them beginning to connect that theory to practice. And then moving on to that AO3, that analysis and evaluation. So really challenge the students with the task that focuses on AO3. Look at situation, make judgments, provide evidence-based backed conclusions. Sorry, that would be evidence-based or evidence-backed conclusions. And this ensures the students are ready for those higher order demands. And again, it's that targeted feedback. So using feedback that aligns with the banded criteria, which then ultimately aligns with the summative goals as well, helps that student from that formative journey that we just talked about with that continuous feedback to then that targeted feedback that matches that criteria and then the goal of that summative assessment. So how do we implement banded schemes in formative practice? So first of all, it's holistic. Marking is that best fit approach. So in the marking process, especially for a complex task, we use a holistic marking approach. So this will be in our extended response questions, and this is known as best fit. Instead of focusing on each individual criteria in isolation, you assess the overall quality of the student's work to place it within the most appropriate band. This allows you to evaluate the full scope of students' response and acknowledging both strengths and areas needed for improvement. So this example on the right, what you've had your student, they've written their extended response question, and they've done AO1, AO2, and AO3 points. But now what you need to look at is how well they've made each of those points. So how well have they made their AO1 points, how well have they made their AO2, and how well they've made their OA3. So in this example, the student's AO1 is actually in the higher band, so wide range of relevant knowledge, whereas their AO2 and their AO3 is more in the second band. So AO2 is mostly applied that relevant knowledge and most parts appropriate, and then the AO3, the evaluation again sitting in that band. Based on this one, the student most likely would get a 6 overall, because the best fit approach would then sit because only AO1's in the higher band. You may consider giving the student 5 marks, say if they haven't completely met all the criteria of the AO3. So was it in the most part detailed and effective and most relevant? However, maybe they weren't mostly logical and coherent. Maybe that was some part logical, or it was generic. So that way, if they didn't reach the whole AO3 points, I would then give the students 5 marks. So really understanding how to utilize the banding and helping your students understand it can really help you then scaffold and support your students through this. So moving on to sort of core exams. So how does understanding the band marking criteria support with core exams? It identifies where your students need support. So as I mentioned earlier in that marking criteria, because it's a holistic approach, you can really understand actually how well the students are utilising that AO1, AO2. So if all your students are actually really struggling with moving up from, say, that level 1 to level 2 or level 2 to level 3 of the AO2, the banding and that marking criteria can really help you target what you need to support your students and really help support where they need that focused sort of interventions. So for example, that might be the conclusion section. This is where they may be failing in the AO3 because they're not using the conclusions to have really strong, justified and logical reasoning. Do you want to move forward a couple? And we will be sharing the slides. We're just a little bit behind today. So we're going to move on to ESP, just so that I can touch on the ESP as well. And we'll share all these slides after as well. So an example of implementing sort of marking criteria and formative and then moving into summative assessment in the ESP. So it's very similar to exams. It's building that foundational knowledge. It's working through that active learning on that application. And then further that active learning through evaluation, reflections and so on. And again, the ESP marking criteria follows that best fit approach. So you can use the banding criteria similarly to support your students on that journey from formative to summative assessment. We're going to keep moving on. Just realised that we are a little bit short of time and I can talk for the whole country. So just some strategies to support the ESP task sort of preparation. Really focusing on those role-playing communication skills, really support practicing that patient-centered care and really focusing on that reflective cycle through analytical practice. So 3 more slides that we've got on here that you can read at your own leisure, and I definitely advise you do this and then definitely reach out to support in anywhere else that you might need it. But we're through these slides, when you receive them, we also look at quality of written communication, critical thinking, and we also will explore sort of strategies as well for success. I just want to move on to understanding banded mark schemes in the ESP. So slide 25 for me. Thank you. So like the holistic banding of the core exams, as I mentioned, the only way that sort of the ESP sort of differs is it moves through 4 banding. So when you're maybe looking at the best fit approach, you need to do this through a 4 banding approach. But what I've also done here on this example is I've already broken it down. So if I was going to give the students an understanding of what does it mean by band 4 versus band 2 versus band 3 versus band 4. Sometimes we need to simplify that marking criteria down a little for the students to really support them understanding informative assessment, how they're doing. So if they're doing a presentation for you or role play, they need to understand where they're sitting on those bands. So you can see here, I've just reduced that, but still had in the key components. So that limited response with significant omissions or errors, or moving to partial response with moderate detail, clear relevant content, comprehensive well-structured responses. So that could work both for communication verbally or in written, depending on what type of task they're doing. And obviously I would probably add to this depending on which sort of ESP task that I'm sort of mirroring in my formative assessment. But it's really important trying to get the students to understand the banding criteria in order to be effective in their formative assessment, so they know by the time they get to a summative assessment like a mock exam, or they get to an endpoint assessment like the core exam, they know what they needed to work on. They've done that and they feel as ready as they're going to be. So moving on to resources to support delivery. So we have on our YouTube channel, we have Mastering ERQs, and I'll share the YouTube channel in a future slide. So we've got Mastering our ERQs bite-sized video. We also have Employer Set Project bite-sized videos. For both of these, they really break down sort of the different components. So the Mastering ERQs breaks down again a little bit more detail about how exam questions are, what they're made of. So the STEM, the evaluative question, how they're then marked, And then the ESP, we explore the different tasks in their individual. We look at graded A exemplar and we look at what the students actually did really well to achieve. And then we also have the exemplars. So we have a graded A, C and A student exemplars. And these are great to use alongside the marking criteria and sharing in a workshop with your students to really understand how they need to progress. I also deliver CPD. So this is varied. So moving on to our CPD slide, I have drop-in clinics where you can come in and you can drop in, as the name would say, on a lunchtime or an evening. We are trialing an early morning coming up in December. If anybody would like a 8:30 drop-in, please do sign up for those. Trying lots of different times, so you can just drop in and ask questions. We've got best practice networks, and tomorrow I even have our next event, so our CPD event, which is exploring year 2. And then finally, additional support, like I mentioned earlier, is we have our YouTube playlist with the link there that has all of our videos and past recordings on. We also have that one-to-one support through our curriculum consultation, and you also have your own dedicated customer service team at your beck and call at that T-level support email as well. And they're the sort of senior customer service team members, and they understand the T levels really effectively and can help support with any questions. So thank you. Any questions?
Thanks, Tracey. If anyone has any questions, if you'd like to share them in the chat box or in the Q&A. And perhaps then just to get things started, Tracey, if we talk about what formative or summative assessment strategies have you found particularly effective in terms of this T level? I know this isn't your specific teaching area, but you've worked with lots of different providers. So what's come up in terms of useful approaches?
So I think it's really thinking about more problem-based learning. I think it's very easy just to go straight to mocks and mock-it questions and exam questions, but actually there's only so well a student can do without really working on the actual skills. So doing sort of problem-based learning, which is actual proper PBL, where you give them the stimulus. You don't usually do this till university, but researching PBL and doing it properly, where you give them the stimulus and they have to solve a problem, and they used to have to use their knowledge and the experiences within their group to then apply to that and solve the issue that might be. Debates, ethics committees, where you have one issue and then everybody gets a role, so like being a social worker or being the nurse, being the parent. So this works on that roles and responsibilities part of the content as well. And it's really, and usually you give the student the one that normally is dead against it, you give them like the opposite role that they would normally be, so they have to sort of curtail them and things. There's so many different things that doesn't have to be exam, because there you're working on AO2 and AO3, and then at the end of something like that you can still give them the marking criteria and go, right, we've just done an ethics committee, you've explored this, you've applied this, evaluated, so do you think you were comprehensive, were you logical in your justification and your reasoning, and get them to examine in that in those different ways, as well as I say, mirroring the formative assessments of the ESP can be a really effective way of supporting core exams. It doesn't just have to be for the ESP that supports as well. So yeah, there's lots that I could probably talk about, definitely.
Brilliant. Thanks, Tracey. We've got a question from Melissa. So can I ask what setup is required for an example ESP? Should we set up a clinical area, and should the student wear a nursing uniform, and the same for second year?
So the employer set project is just a discussion, so you can have that anywhere, which really helps support you, especially if you've only got one sim room or a smaller sim room. You can have them in a classroom. It's just a professional discussion. However, I do find that our providers also find that the students using their uniform that they use in their sim room helps to get the student in the mind frame for that role play. Yes, I'm an assistant healthcare nurse, and it gets them almost ready for that and that professional discussion. Obviously year 2 is completely different. That is very clinical based, and that will be in their clinical setting, so within the sim room. And again, you probably want them to wear sort of their uniform, because I know a lot of colleges, they get uniforms and scrubs and stuff for their students just so that they feel ready for that, and they've got the mindset in.
Brilliant. Thanks, Tracey. One more question if we've got time, just a couple of minutes. So how can GIBs be used for ESP? Will they be graded on this? I didn't see it in the exemplar ESPs.
Yeah, so they have their reflection, no problem, Melissa. So Shan, they have their reflection task as their final task. Well, obviously, it's up to you what reflective model that you would like to teach them. So if you go to the core skill reflection of the spec, it does go through the different reflective sides of it within the spec. But obviously, the best way to get to teach your students to understand reflection is by using a reflective model. I picked Gibbs because it's the most popular one as teachers and nurse practitioners, and it's the one they use in year 2 as well. It's the assignment, the performer for year 2 sort of match that. But I would teach them a couple and then get them to evaluate and reflect on actually which one works best for them as a reflective practitioner, because they might prefer Kolb or Shun. I don't think any student prefers Shun, but they might prefer Shun. So definitely get them to try different ones.
Brilliant. Thanks, Tracey. So I'm just sharing Tracey's email here, and you'll obviously be able to click on this link when you get the slide deck after the session today. So now we're going to move on, and Iain is going to give us an overview of what's available from ETF. So Iain, over to you. Remember, I'm moving the slides, so just nudge me when required.
Yeah, your fingers are going to be busy with these slides, Rebecca. Apologies. I'm going to rattle through quite quickly because I know time's against us. So yeah, good afternoon, everyone. My name's Iain Thompson. I'm a regional relationship manager at the ETF here. There's a few acronyms I've just noticed as we go through. So on this first slide, ARDL is Area Relationship and Development Lead, and I'll sort of touch on what they do as we go through. But if we can move on the slide, Rebecca. So just a little bit of info about ETF. I know we had the slide at the start. So we're a charity. Our main aim is around delivering CPD programs to meet the needs of the sector. You can see in the bottom left of this slide, earlier this year, we've launched a new strategic sort of plan in terms of our focus of our work. And you can find out a little bit more about that on the ETF website. We've been involved with T-levels now since 2020. So for the past 4 years, we've been delivering T-level professional development. And what happened earlier this year is we were lucky enough that DFE had granted us a 2-year extension. So we've got a fully funded offer of training available to anyone who's delivering or planning to deliver T-levels up until July 2026. So today I'm going to talk to you a little bit about some of the new stuff that's on offer that might be of interest to you. So we could move on the slide. So yeah, as I just alluded to, it's a fully funded offer. The whole idea of TLPD is that there's multiple themes of development opportunities, and the idea of the whole sort of project really is that regardless of your role and what you do in your provider, it could be frontline delivery of teaching or career advice, there's some element of training that you could access with us that will help improve your knowledge and skills of T-levels. What we've done to make our offer as accessible as possible is try to vary up how we deliver training. So there's a variety of modes that we use, such as live online training, flexible online training you can access in your own time and space. We also offer face-to-face training events, a number of things. Hopefully some of you have been to things like the conferences we have on our networks, various webinars and so on, with the sole purpose being that whatever you engage with and whatever sort of time in your journey you are with T-levels, that there's something more impactful that you can access and help build those knowledge and skills. So for this next sort of 2-year cycle, we've modified some of the training that we've got on offer to you. So you'll see if you engage with us that some of our courses now have a part 1 and a part 2. And for this one, obviously, we're talking more about assessment. Assessment is one of those courses where we've got a brand new sort of part 2 content based on feedback that we've received from the sector over the past sort of 18 months, 2 years, to ensure that the training we're delivering is impactful and meeting the needs. And like I alluded to earlier, they're delivered in a variety of different ways. Generally, of our assessment courses, in person seems to be quite popular, but there is some flexible online training that you can access. And there's also been a slight modification for the schools audience compared to sort of a GFE or a sixth form college. So there's lots on offer, not just around assessment, but absolutely tons. And we haven't got time to talk about it now, but do check out the website. If we can move on to the next slide, Rebecca. Oh, this one's a jazzy slide with lots of if you want to click on it, it'll all come up. So if you've engaged with us before, you'll probably recall that we had a platform that was called the Professional Development Platform, another acronym PDP, that we used for sort of the past 4 years. What we've done over the summer this year, we've introduced a new platform, which is aptly named the ETF Learning Platform, and it's basically an opportunity for you to access more things that ETF offer all in one place. So within this learning environment now, you'll be able to do things that we've sort of previously had, like in individual training needs analysis, which is like a self-assessment you can do that sort of throws up some training that might be relevant to you. You can book onto training. In the previous sort of rounds of TLPD, we utilised an external platform called FutureLearn for online courses, but they now sit within the ETF universe on this learning platform. So all your training needs and how you can book is all sitting in one place, which is quite nice. You'll get a profile on the system if you join, and there's also sort of a tracking area where you can track what training you've done and collect things like certificates and so on. So when these slides go out, I think one of these pictures is linked. You can get on how to create your account. But if there's any issues, do contact your area relationship and development lead, which I know there's a link further on in this slide deck. So yeah, that's a real positive new platform. So do go and check it out. Next slide. Just with these, this is just a little bit of an overview of the content of a couple of the courses that are available. These ones in particular seem to be more popular delivered what we call in-house. So a physical person comes to your organisation to deliver this training. And you can see, and I'm not going to go into too much detail on this, but the part 1 and part 2, these are just some of the learning objectives that make up those courses. Generally with these, if you say you're going to have like a part 1 course, they generally last about 3 hours of delivery. And it's slightly shorter for online. So do check out these. There's a link in here you can have a little look at these in a bit more detail on the content of them. And again, if there's any questions, do please use the chat. If we go on to the next slide. This is some upcoming training we've got specifically for assessment. You can see there's quite a lot of training dates that we offer for a lot of our courses. These are ones that are delivered sort of live online, so you can access from anywhere. I think these are live linked as well, so if you do get the slides and any of these are of interest to you, you can click the live link and be taken to them there. Just to note, I did mention it earlier, the slight differentiation we've got. So if you're in a school compared to say like a general further education college, we would recommend accessing the training that's generally, it says schools in the title. So this one's teaching and assessing T-levels in schools, just to make sure that it's differentiated really for our audience and making sure it's the most impactful it could possibly be. So do check those dates out if you get a chance. And if we can go on to the next slide, Rebecca. Brilliant. Okay, so this isn't really a new thing that we offer, but we have a wide range of networks. I know Charlie's here from Gatsby. Gatsby have networks. Our colleagues at AOC have networks. So there's a variety of networks that you can engage with. Within the TLPD offer, we have specific ones that are based solely on assessment. And these are termly generally. They're normally pretty short, about an hour, at varying times of the day. These ones tend to start sort of 3:30 for assessment. Sometimes they're lunchtime based, and it's an opportunity for collaboration, sharing ideas, seeing what other people are doing across the country in terms of their T-level delivery, and it's just quite nice to. Sometimes it's a bit like therapy, really. You can have a chat with other people, see what their challenges are, but also on a positive note, people sharing their successes as well. So they're quite regular. There's a variety of networks, assessment, curriculum-based, strategic leaders, industry placement, and so on. So do check those out. And then just on the right-hand side of this slide, you'll see, oh, sorry, Rebecca, just back one, thanks. Conferences. Hopefully, many of you have attended over the past 2 years one of the ETF T-level events. This year we had a big event at Ellen Road in Leeds for our national T-level conference. This year there's going to be 2, so there's going to be one in the north and one in the south. Can't confirm dates or destinations yet, but fingers crossed it's Leeds, because that's where I live, for the north one. All I would advise with that is, as soon as that information comes out, I would just book early, because they're very popular. events. I know, so I can see some familiar names on the call, so hoping that some of you have been to those before. So if we can move on to the next slide. Yeah, so these are another element of what we deliver within TLPD. Slightly different to the assessment focused ones. These ones are called teaching and learning. These are what we call route specific courses. They're focused much more solely on the individual T-level routes, as you can see here: health, healthcare, science, and science. The ones that are shown here, you can see that these are online events. These ones are not recorded, so it is literally a book up and come along and attend. So yeah, again, a variety of dates, but do have a look. They're broken into different parts with these. I think the sort of stance on this year is you need to attend both parts in a series, so it's not sort of wait for the next series to attend. So if these are of interest, you do need to make sure that you can attend both of the events that are in one series, so part 1 and part 2, as it says on the slide here. So yeah, click those links if you need to when you get the slides. And I think I've got a couple more slides left. Yeah, so another acronym, TRIPS, so our T-level resource improvement projects. So over the past 4 years, ETF have been working with a variety of partners, AOC, providers across the sector, people who are delivering T-levels to create resources, basically, information packages, stuff that can be used across the sector to help in the delivery of T-levels. And what we've got here, there's some live links on this slide to previous content that's been created specifically for healthcare and science and health. But there's a variety of projects across all the T-levels that might be of interest. And there's loads of things in there, delivery things about, industry placements, lesson resources and so on. So I would recommend, if you get a chance, go have a look on there, because, you might not need to create something, you might be able to use some of the resources that we've got on here. And there'll be some more trips that will be going live at the end of this year. And you might even be at an organisation who's supporting this project this year as well. So do check those out. And then the final slide. So yeah, next steps. As I mentioned earlier, the ETF sort of learning platform. There's a link here where you'll take you to the website and you can create your profile. I'd probably say the most important link out of all the slide deck is that find your ARDL link. So each region has a ETF staff member from their regional team linked to it, and their job is solely to support you as providers in making sure that you can access training and resources, fostering collaboration and networking across the sector. So if you're not sure who your person is, do feel free to click that link when you get a chance. If you go onto the ETF website and click the About Us page, there's a specific page for the regional team, and you can get their details from there. But do reach out to us for support. And then just the next two just upcoming sessions that might be of interest to you in the immediate future. Is looking at those dates is scary because I need to start doing some Christmas shopping. But if there's any questions, please feel free to pop them in the chat. I'll pop my email in as well, because I was a bit of a late substitute to come and present to you today, but more than happy to take anything offline if people want a conversation. So thanks for your time.
Brilliant. Thanks, Iain. Does anyone have any immediate questions? And we'll have time at the end as well if you need a bit of time to percolate. And obviously, a lot of these slides from Iain today are quite practical. So we'll be sharing the slide deck and the video, so you can actually click through the live links on the deck. So I'll just give it a minute just in case we have any questions. I think what we'll do is move over to Charlie and Kelly's presentation from fabulous. Yeah, we're happy to share emails. So Iain's put his in the chat. Tracey, if you could pop yours in as well, that would be great. And Charlie and Kelly, when you've done your presenting, if you could share yours as well, that would be brilliant. So I'll just move on to Charlie and Kelly's slides now, and we've got some interaction in this section. We've got a good old classic Slido to get us thinking. So let me move on to these slides and hand over to you, Charlie and Kelly.
Brilliant. Thanks, Rebecca, and lovely to see everyone today. And thanks, Iain. That was really kind of informative as well. Good to see you. Good to see you too. So, yeah, my name's Charlie Moss. My role at Gatsby is Head of Further Education Curriculum Support. And when we were asked to contribute to this session, we thought what would be kind of useful might be some kind of examples of types of assessment that we've kind of created through one of the programs that we run at Gatsby. So I wanted to kind of showcase some of those for you, and luckily they fit into the ethos that Tracey mentioned earlier about application for learning and things like that. So it's as if we were in sync there, Tracey. So that's good to know. So next slide, please. So yeah, I'll give you a quick run through of our Technical Education Networks program. So this is our largest kind of provider teacher facing program that we offer at Gatsby, supporting technical education with an early focus on T levels, and also we'll talk a little bit about examples of study questions that we've kind of created to support the T level in health. So we'll show you some of those examples, and hopefully they'll be helpful to implement into your teaching. And just mindful, you've got the autumn exam series coming up, so hopefully these will be helpful for that and wider afield on T levels. Next slide, please. So just talking a little bit about our Technical Education Networks program. Our whole ethos is bringing industry and the classroom closer together, and we have three main outputs on the program. Our largest output is teaching materials, so we have teaching materials with a root focus around kind of T levels and the different pathways on the T levels also. So we have resources for health and science and healthcare science as well as part of that as well. We support with events, so similar to the events that Iain was talking about earlier, the National T Level Conference. We did the route specific sessions in the afternoon there for that. So we kind of do collaborative events, and we also do Gatsby events as well, both in person and online. And we also undertake research around subject specific pedagogy, teaching, learning and assessment really. And at the core of the Technical Education Networks program is a group of specialist teachers. So we have between 20 and 40 teachers in each of the routes that we convene 3 times a year, and they kind of have that community of practice, share their insight, and they drive the direction of travel of what we produce, whether that be teaching materials, research, or what we support with at events as well really. So they're a core kind of group really, and my colleague Kelly will drop kind of our email in the chat if anybody is interested in finding out more about those groups, or you would like to join those groups potentially in health, or if you've got colleagues in the other areas that we offer them in agriculture, construction, digital and engineering and manufacturing, just drop us an email and we'll send you some further details, and we'll include some details in the after webinar comms as well, so that you have these. So all our outputs from the program are hosted on our website, so I'll show you some of the outputs that might be helpful for that, and my colleague Kelly again will drop the link to the website in the chat, so you have. Oh, she's already done it. Thanks, Kelly. And we've got that. So I'll just share my screen at this point, and I'll just run through some of the examples in the materials that we have. So I'll just double check. Can you give me a thumbs up if you can see? Yep, thank you, Kelly. So this is our website, technicaleducationnetworks.org.uk, and as you can see, you've got our routes along the top there. So if you click on health and science, you'll come to our route page, and then you've got all our topics here that we have our materials for. So if you click onto our health and good scientific and clinical practice, I just thought I'd give you an example of one of our topics and the types of assessments that are available within a topic. So each topic has a teaching guide at the top that articulates how you might use some of the materials. It provides a framework and some flexibilities for use. And then you have our lesson cards. So each lesson and then all the assets that are supporting that lesson, and they would just work their way through. So this suite has 5 lessons and a variety of different kind of assets around that. So slide decks, worksheets, we have films, interactives, and a real variety of different outputs. And what we do is we work really closely with NCFE and professional organisations and employers. We have a publishing partner, and we have really robust quality assurance. So we're really lucky we get access to people like Tracey, chief examiners, subject specialists at NCFE that really kind of frame anything around assessment, and also ensures that we cover the breadth and depth of the T level and follow those principles that Tracey mentioned earlier in preparing learners successfully for those external summative assessments, which is really, really important. So I'll use good scientific and clinical practice as an example, but we've got assessments filtered throughout our materials. So I'll just show you some examples. So this is in lesson 1 on our slide deck. We have assessments like this. So this is a scenario-based assessment looking at examples around how what's rose in a question for students, and then for them to try and consider what the responses is. So this is about losing keys to a medicine cabinet. What could go wrong? How could this situation be rectified or prevented from happening in the future? And then what should be done and what are the consequences? So you can prompt those discussions with students and really pull out that detail in there as well, really. So this example, there's 7 scenarios. So there's one about a fridge and putting your lunch in there as well. There's ones about kind of plugs. There's ones about medicine being missing and what you might do. The wrong labels completed on some medicine, and there's a real variety. There's 7 examples there that you could work your way through with students as well. We also have things like this in lesson 2. So this is all around standard operating procedures, and we have an example of a completed SOP that you might share with your students and identify errors or how this can be improved. So for example, you can see straight away there's no date attached, and students can work through this. The detail in some of this, could it be improved? And then there's a little example there and any kind of change history here. So this is another example that you might want to use with your students. This is a plenary activity in lesson 2, just to bring all that learning back together. We also have visuals as well within our materials. So this is an example in lesson 3. And it's kind of look at the images, what measurements do people working in healthcare take and why are they important? So it can prompt a question to students, and then you get some examples on the subsequent slide that will bring some examples in there. So they may be able to talk about kind of temperature and potentially oxygen saturation levels if they've done physiological measurements, but things like urine output and heart rate or respiratory rate, you can really kind of pull out those examples there as well, really. So we have things like that as well. I'll just have to move to this next one. Sorry, it's just underneath this bit here. Can I just get to that? I will go on to it a different way. So we also have I'll just stop sharing for a second, open this up. There we go, and then share again. It was just under the cursor as I was ticking it. So there we go, we'll do it that way. So this is another example. So this is more what Tracey were talking about earlier around the mark scheme, and we work with NCFE to sense check any kind of more summative assessment or anything that's got a mark scheme associated, just to make sure it's pulling out those key things as well here. So this is a scenario around the topic area. It's about kind of a microbiology lab, a designated fridge, blood products only. So he's put the sample in there, explained 2 reasons why this isn't suitable. So you could pose this to your students. We also have a handout with this information on, and then on the subsequent slide, you have the mark scheme. So reasons how they can get the marks. So it's important to adhere to appropriate guidelines. It could be separated, the temperature could be at a different rate than what a blood fridge is, and therefore it could contaminate. So it's about applying that learning. It gives you some examples about how you would access AO2 for that question as well, really. So the assessments that we've kind of incorporated within the materials are throughout the materials. I've just tried to use one topic area just to pull out some examples, and we'll make sure that these are clearly signposted when we send out the information. Oh, Kelly's already done it. Fantastic. Thanks, Kelly. one step ahead there. She's pulled out those examples for me nicely. I just wanted to show you something else that we've done as well. Just so you can see another way of assessments. So in our topic, working within the health and science sector, we've done kind of 5 scenario films. So I'll just show you one of these, maybe 2 if we've got time, but this is just another way of learning. So I'll show you them just so you can see an example and get a taste. I'll just have to stop sharing and reshare with the sound this time, just so you can see that, if that's okay. There we go. So I'll just upload this up so you can see an example. You just have to give me a thing. So just give me a thumbs up, please, if you can hear the sound. So sorry, there's quite somber music. I always think that every time we watch it, but it's obviously an important kind of topic area. We do have other examples on them other scenarios. So there's one around industry placements, but it's quite a dry topic around policies. So we've used scenario learning to apply a real life context, and then for students to apply what's the appropriate policy, but also prompt that discussion about, you know, appropriate disposal of sharps, and to make sure that they're following the right, and it then would prompt that kind of deeper level of learning, really. So hopefully that gives you a bit of a taste of some of the assets that we have available. Like I said, if you've got any questions or you'd like any more details about the programme or getting more involved, I know Kelly's added the email and we'll add that as well. And I'll pass back to Rebecca and Tracey. Thank you.
Thanks, Charlie. So we've got a Slido, but what I propose that we do is we're towards the end of the session now is if we we'll share the link, and if people want to contribute to the Slido after the session, I think that would be really useful just to share resources. So we're just now at a period of wrapping up. So I'll just try and share my screen. One moment. So yeah, the wrap-up period. So we've got about 5 minutes for questions. I've got one for you, Charlie, from Catherine. She wants to know, can I ask Charlie if the lessons linked to criteria numbers, for example, A2.3, or just the wording of topic areas?
Yes, so all the lessons link to specific criteria, and in the teaching guide it articulates which criteria is covered directly by the lesson, and also synoptic links to other areas of the curriculum that might be brought into this learning as well. So if you have a look at the teacher guide, it gives you a really clear breakdown of the specification points that are covered in each lesson, but also the synoptic links to other areas of the curriculum to promote that holistic curriculum planning.
Thanks, Charlie. Are there any more questions? We've got just a couple of minutes left, and I know how busy you all are. So if we don't have many more questions, it would be great if you had the opportunity to look at the Slido link when I send around the slides, or in this chat box here. And I'll just share with you a little bit of information about the next 2 sessions that we have. So we're doing sessions over the next 2 weeks after this week. So next week we have colleagues from Gatsby, ETF, AOC and NCFE looking at effective pedagogy. And then in the first week of December, if we can believe it, I can't believe we're almost heading towards that Christmas break, we're going to focus on effective placement. So for that one, we're going to get colleagues from the Strategic Development Network, AOC, I think ETF and Gatsby. We're going to have a provider as well, a college lecturer just explaining, what they've done to make really effective placements. So that's everything I think we wanted to share. We'll be around for just a minute or 2 longer if anyone has any further questions. I know some of you have to get off. And just as a reminder, this video will be available for you all to watch in your own time, and we'll be sending through that slide deck as well with all those live links. So just like to say thanks so much to all the colleagues who've contributed today from NCFE, ETF and Gatsby, and to all of you who've attended to listen in as well and pick up some resources. And Peter has just explained as well, I'd completely forgotten, in that placement session we have someone from NHS England as well talking about that all important effective NHS placement. So lots of experts at your disposal. Please do take those email addresses as well, and thanks so much for your time.